Hello my friends, Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works Workshop, and we've got George Adams. George Adams is a repeat customer, so I guess I did something right the last time.
You did.
Okay, well that's good.
The old country western Gibson.
The old country and western Gibson. He said that
From
we
the 60s,
put a new bridge on it because it had the old adjustable bridge.
Both on, yeah.
Yeah, those old adjustable metal
All kinds of metal in it.
But anyway, he seems to think that that one's set up pretty well, and he wants to know if I can do the same thing with this. And this is Martin. Tell him what it is.
It's a Hank Williams Sr. model.
Oh yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's a 55 of 150.
It says a D28HW for Hank Williams, I guess.
Yeah,
that's cool. That's cool. Well, it's a nice looking guitar, and I tell you, it's got George describes it as the sitar sound. I don't know if it'll come across on the video, but listen. So you can hear that extra zzz in there with when you pluck it. And then I've plucked it with closed, by noting it here, and I can still hear it a faint, the problem is when you shorten a string, like when the string's full length, it vibrates like this. I'm exaggerating, of course, but when you shorten it, it vibrates like this. And so you don't hear it as much. But when I note it here, like about the 3rd fret, I can still hear it buzzing, and so their buzz is coming off of the saddle. So we've got that problem, but it also buzzes on like the D string when you note it through here. So whoever set this up, set it up decently, but they set it up on the very, very low edge. I mean, it's really low compared to the way I normally set them up. Fortunately, I think we can just do a real good, careful fret leveling and recrowning, and I think we can fix almost everything, and then I'll just have to work a little bit on that E string here to get rid of the sitar sound. I'll just have to make sure that that saddle isn't buzzing. I think that's all we have to do to it, because it's a beautiful guitar, and I think it's going to turn out and play really well.
I can't wait.
Well, we'll get started.
Great.
All right, well, the first thing I'm going to do, of course, is take the strings loose. In fact, I don't plan to change the strings at this moment. I'm going to just use these strings and set it up with these strings. But I'll just loosen it up here and take it apart here at the pins. Okay, well now that I've got the strings off here, I'm going to take my fret leveling file. This file is just a 6-inch mill bastard file is all it is, and I've glued it to this block of wood. I made the block of wood, and what I do is, before I get started leveling, is I go down through here and I just feel if I can feel any rocking. See right there. Can you hear it? It's rocking right there. So there's a high spot there. Few little high spots, but it's not bad. But it only takes a couple thousandths of an inch to make a string buzz. And so that's what we're going to do, is we're just going to level everything down and try to get it just as perfect as we can, because with action as low as this is set, we have to get it perfect. I mean, it has to be perfect. Okay, what I'm going to do now is put on my close-up glasses and kind of inspect the frets to see if there's any that aren't being touched at all. I suspect there might be still. Honestly, they do look like they're all being filed. A little bit right here. This one I don't think's been filed yet. And this one's, the middle's not been filed much. Yeah, you can tell there's some irregularities. They're not far off. We're only talking thousandths of an inch, but that's all it takes. We've got a little bit of fret wear in several places on these high strings. On the E and the B, there's some fret wear. So I'm going to keep going until I see all of that will just barely leave a mark. I don't like to take it out where you can't see it. I like to take it out to where it's barely noticeable. And then you know you haven't gone too far. And so far, I can see it pretty clearly down through here. So we're going to keep going, and that's going to help because the action is really set too low anyway. And this is, going to give us a little bit more clearance. For the untrained, there's two more things. First of all, it always looks like you're filing more off than you are. Those little grooves were only a few thousandths deep, and we still have the grooves left. So we haven't taken much off. It looks like you're taking off tons. The second thing is, for somebody who might be interested in making their own file like this, the key is that any file, as far as I can tell, none of them are perfectly flat. They all have a slight, bow to them. Now, when I'm exaggerating the bow a lot. It's so small that when you put it up and look down it, like if you're looking straight down it, you can barely detect it. But you want to put the cup side up and the bow side down. In other words, the concave side up, the convex side down when you glue it to your board. Even though it's such a minor amount, that really does matter on leveling frets. So be sure to do that if you make one of these. We're just about to clean them up. I can still see it on these couple of frets here. Can barely tell it on this one. So we're just about there. I can still see it on 2 frets. I like to get it down to where it's only showing up on 1 at the, that way you're just about perfect. And you notice I work my way up and I'm going from side to side as I do this to keep it all even. Should be good now, or it should be really flat. I think we can call that good enough. Now I'm going to get out the recrowning file and we'll recrown these frets. Okay, my friends, I've got my recrowning file. I've got the medium one in this one. Often I use the large one, and I might possibly switch to the large one here. I'm going to see how well this works. Now the goal of this is not to take anything off the top. That's where people screw up the most, in my opinion, is once you spend all that time getting these perfectly level, or as perfect as a human can get them, and which is what I've done. I've got them as close to perfect as you can get them. Then the last thing you want to do is take your crowning file and go straight on the top and knock it down lower. I don't want to lower any of these. All I want to do is get rid of the edge on both sides of the fret. So I'm going to be rocking this back and forth like this to try to just round it over a little bit. And whether it gets perfectly round or not, it's, the rounder I can get it, the better I like it, but it won't get perfectly round.
Dry up here. My sister lives in Ohio, and it's been really dry there.
Would it be okay if I took a picture over your back, or?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, just kind of since you're working on his guitar, George, I will send this to you.
Thank you.
You know I'm Mr. Picture Taker.
Okay, my friends, I think I've got that crowned up pretty darn good. I mean, it looks, you know, it's not perfect like it would come from the factory because these have been leveled, but they're so near round that you can't really tell there's any flatness there. But you don't want to screw with that top. That's the thing you don't want to mess with, especially when they're set up as low as this one is set up. Now, the next thing I told George I would do is to look at his fret slots here, because Fred said when the guy was setting this up, he was kind of going, uh-oh. He was saying things like that, you know, which makes you kind of question it, you know. So I'm going to just check it. I'm not going to go any deeper exactly. I'm just making sure that the angle is correct, mostly. And so what I'm doing is just very lightly opening it up here. And I'm actually exaggerating the angle a little bit, so I'm cutting a little bit off the front edge, but I'm going to leave the back edge exactly where it is. For two reasons. Number one, that'll make sure it doesn't buzz in the fret, because it'll be touching at the very back edge here, the last place it touches. But anyway, so that's all I'm doing is I'm just lightly cleaning it up. I'm not taking it down any lower. I'm just making sure that the angle is correct. And just for you, if you're new at this, the angle should be approximately the same as your peg head. As long as you do that, you're good. In my opinion, these are too flat. The more angle you have, in my opinion, the better off your nut is. So these are a little flat. I have fret files that match every one of these slots, but I'm not really using them. I'm just taking this one and just working it in a half moon configuration and just checking that front edge. And I'm watching it move back toward the back here, or the inside edge if you prefer to call it that. I'm just watching it move back, and then when it gets back to there, I stop, because I don't want to change the height of this. And I think that's going to work for that. Now we've got a problem. We know that it's buzzing, especially on this E string. And so what we're going to do now is take a different approach, and we're going to find a flat file here. And I'm just going to use this little flat file. And there's a high spot in the middle of this saddle, and what's happening is the string is coming to that high spot, and then it's buzzing off the front edge of the saddle. And we don't want that, so I'm just going to take and make a constant angle here and get rid of that. Again, I'm not going to try to lower this. I don't want to lower it. I just want to, you know, stop it at the very front edge. In terms of the angle for this, it's hard to give you an exact angle, but when I'm setting an exact angle, I usually use about 13, 14 degrees, something like that. 12 degrees minimal, but something like that. In my opinion, a little more is better than less. It's got a good bone saddle in it. That's a good thing. I think that probably will work. The only way we're going to know, though, is to string it up and try it. So I'm going to go ahead and just string it up with the strings that are on there, because there's no point in putting new strings on there until we know we're good. I'll go ahead and string it up and bring you back in a second. Well, my friends, I've gone ahead and strung it back up and tested it, and quite honestly, it wasn't up to par. This E string was buzzing just as bad, or maybe even worse. So what I did was I actually took the fine nut file and cut the angle even a little bit steeper to bring it to this back edge. And that seems to always work for me when you're right on the bleeding edge. And now it's cleaner. It's still not perfect. It's really, really much cleaner though. So we're clean open. Now on the D string, it seems to buzz a hair still when you note it. But it's so minimal. We've got really light strings on this, and I think in this case, making them just a hair heavier will work. This string here is, according to my calipers, it's a 9.5 on this E string, and only a 13 on this string on the B. So these are pretty light strings. This is only a 46 on this E. So if we go slightly heavier, these are 11 to 52. That might be just enough, because like I said, this thing is set up on the very lowest edge of where I would ever set one up. I mean, I wouldn't set one up not even 1/1000th of an inch lower than where this thing is set. And it's right on the bottom edge of where I would go. And even then, you almost got to twist my arm to get it this low. So I think by putting these slightly heavier strings on it, which are still lights, I think this might make the difference. So we're going to try that and see where we're at. Well, my friends, we put those slightly heavier strings. They're still lights, you understand, but we put the heavier lights on, and that's made quite a bit of difference. It really has. The action at the 12th fret on the bass side is about 80. I typically set them at 90. The action at the treble side is 68 to 70, and I typically set that at 80. So the action is on the low side of where I would go still, so it's still real low, and I don't hear the same sounds, you know, the buzzing type sounds that I heard before. So like the E seems pretty clear now. Pretty clear. I don't really hear anything in that. Now, and then the D, we were having real problems with it buzzing. Sounds pretty good to me. The only other observation I have on this guitar, which might help us just a hair more, is I think the truss rod is just bleeding edge too tight. I mean, just a tiny amount too tight. I think if we back it off just even like a quarter turn at the most, I think that's going to make everything just perfect on this. So it doesn't matter what I think, it matters what George thinks. So George, take a look at it. And George has not looked at it yet, so and I told him to be totally candid. Don't accept it if you don't like it.
That's nice.
It's got to be better than it was. The old myth is that Martins can't be set up as low as the other guitars, and that's just a total myth.
Listen to that D. I'm hitting it hard too.
Yeah. I think it's pretty darn good. I mean, for my money, it's still a hair low, but it's for being that low, it's about as good as you're going to get it, I think. Other than, I think we could still loosen the truss rod just a hair. And I think it'll just ensure that it's going to stay that way. I think it's pretty good. But George, you're the final say. What do you say? He's hitting it pretty hard. He's bending strings, guys. He's going to get arrested by the bluegrass police.
I am. I'm a bluegrass buster. It's a lot better. It's really good.
Yeah, it's close.
I think maybe the truss rod and
I think we just lower that.
It would give us a little more room.
Yeah, I think if we just, because to me, when I look down it looks slightly bowed from flat. In other words, it's got an overbow in it rather than an underbow. All necks should have just the tiniest amount of underbow. In fact, if you can see it, generally you have too much. In this case, you can't see it at all. It's slightly overbowed in my opinion. So I think we need to loosen that just a hair, and I think it'll be as close to perfect as you can get it. All right, I'm going to see if I just happen to get lucky here and have the right wrench. Well, you know what? It is. All right, so it feels real tight by hand, so I'm going to just take these pliers here and see if I can loosen it just a hair. Wow, it's real tight. Oh my gosh, it's super tight. There it is. Wow, that was really tight. Loosening is, by the way, you never ever, I mean, like, hear me say this, you never ever tighten a truss rod with the strings tight. You can lower or lessen the truss rod with the strings tight, but you never tighten the truss rod with the strings tight. I'm loosening it, I'm not tightening it. Yeah, there you go. It was really tight. So let's see if that made a difference. I'm going to look down it. Yep, I think that's all we needed right there. I really think that's all we needed. It's got just a hint of underbow in it now. And I mean, like, most people would say it's flat by looking down it, but I can see there's just a very minor amount of underbow now where it was absolutely flat before. In fact, it was a hair bowed. Now, I don't know if that affected the tuning, so let's check the tuning here. And I keep losing my picks, but let's check that real quick. Yeah, that lowered the tuning. Sounds right to me. But like,
pick.
oh, there's my pick. Static electricity. It was stuck to the back of the guitar. I was wondering where that pick went. I couldn't tell.
I'm always slapping the
It
guitar.
does sound,
Way better.
Oh, yeah.
Way better.
and I think the truss rod
Yeah,
really needed to be done.
it was just a hair too tight. Well, in fact, it was so tight, it was hard to
Yeah,
loosen.
yeah.
It was really hard to loosen.
That sounds good.
Well, I should have had the camera up there while George was playing that. Tom, his friend, is off camera there. He's playing it a little bit right now, just kind of giving it a second opinion. Or maybe, I guess that's a third opinion. Well, I think we feel like we've had success. Can you, sorry about that. He has to stoop down a little bit.
I'll do my thigh exercise.
But are you okay with it, George?
Yes, I love it. It's so much better than it was. It really
Well, that's
is.
good. It needed not very much in one way. It didn't need very much, but in another way, it needed so much because, like I said, it's set up on the action as low as you can possibly set up an acoustic. You can set up acoustics, higher and they'll play fine. But when you get them set down really, really low like this, it's a fine touch on the leveling and on the saddles and the nuts. Everything has to be absolutely perfectly spot on. And I think we're as close as you can get to that on this one right now, because like I said, it's really set up low. So George, I hope you like it.
I love it.
If you ever have any trouble with it, of course, everything's fully guaranteed.
There you go.
It's just a long drive back here, that's all.
I think you're safe. But this is the only place I'd bring one of my guitars up here.
Well, thank you. Yeah, he told me that a minute ago. He says, I'm the only person he's ever let work on his guitars.
Any of them.
Well, that's good. So thank you.
Thank you, Jerry, very much.
You're welcome.
Good job.
Take care.